You cannot truly know who you are without relationships. Yes, you can survive in the world with food, water, and shelter, but to really understand yourself and to thrive, you can only see yourself by how you are in relation to someone or something else. Just like we can only know hot because we felt cold. We can only understand ourselves through how we relate to others. Even this video right now is a demonstration of that. Me relating to you, someone else, someone other than me, through the device of this camera. We are nothing without relating. And in this video, we're diving deep into why all of our relationships, past and present, are powerful mirrors that reveal who you really are, and how this can fuel your personal and spiritual growth. So many people ask themselves, who am I? Now, while I could approach that question from a number of different angles, some of which I will address in other videos, I would argue that relationships are one of the ultimate ways to answer that huge question of who am I? And I'm talking all types of relationships, whether that be in our intimate relationships, as a parent, a friend, how we relate to a stranger, an animal, the environment, all of it. Even the fact that we relate very differently to different people and situations is very helpful. Because by looking at the differences, we're able to understand the intricacies of our personalities. For example, you may be able to demonstrate very kind and compassionate behavior towards your family, but then become very withdrawn while walking out in public, or become aggressive while driving a car. So how you relate to others in these different situations offers a window into exploring your personality, that there are different parts of you at play in those different situations, and it can point to unhealed wounds, self-sabotaging patterns, and just different ways that you try to protect yourself from people in the world in how we respond differently in different situations. So in effect, how we relate to others is actually a mirror for what is happening inside of us. Which isn't how many people look at things. Because so many people get caught up in blaming another person or other people for why you react in a certain way. Even if you take the case of another person acting in a way that is very unkind or unloving towards us, they can still not force you or me to react or respond in any particular way. They are simply activating an opportunity to demonstrate who you really are, or who you see yourself to be at this current time, anyway, based on the unconscious beliefs and the patterns that are running. I understand this may be hard for some people to process and agree with. Some of you might be saying, well, what about someone who abuses me or betrays me? That's all on them. And I'm not excusing toxic behavior in any way, shape or form, or encouraging anyone to expose themselves to danger by having this bigger picture perspective on things. I'm simply inviting you to see what's unfolding in every situation with another human being from a broader view, as it's feedback in real time about who you are. If we're simply being reactive and haven't explored our inner worlds, we have ignored what is often referred to as our as our shadow parts or shadow side. And we're unlikely to continue, or we are likely to continue to remain in that loop of reactivity whilst those aspects have not been examined. And I should point out here that the shadow is not or our shadow aspects are not some dark and scary aspect. They're simply aspects of ourselves that we haven't acknowledged enough, that we may have repressed or are just blind to, that are operating in the background. I should also point out here that the shadow aspects are not buried somewhere deep inside us where we can't find them, that we need to be taken into some deep state of hypnosis to access these aspects. And in fact, I'll be going into depth with how we can do that in a work in future videos. And it is not that hard. We all have access to it. It just takes an open mind and an open heart to access what's lying just beneath the surface. And when we are able to move out of a pattern of reacting, which is just reacting or repeating a pattern that is coming from some kind of fear rather than loving space within us, and we can move to responding, then every encounter we have with another human being becomes an opportunity to demonstrate who we really are, to choose who you want to be. Who do you want to be in relation to that person? Who do you wish to be as you relate to the person that's yelling at you? Do you want to relate to them by yelling back at them? Or firmly and calmly request that that person stop, and if they don't, simply walk away with composure, knowing that you've tried to de-escalate the situation. Of course, if there's real threat in any kind of situation, asserting yourself is not necessarily wise, and remaining silent is the safer option. But my point is, when you are free of reactivity, you get to choose who you want to be. Relationships are about choosing how we wish to relate to the world. And certainly not just about receiving. So much of the time we focus on what we can get from others. What am I getting from this relationship? They're not giving me enough attention. They don't compliment me enough. I'm certainly not suggesting that anyone remain in a relationship that is completely unbalanced or unloving. Certainly as a parent, you don't have a choice anyway, that you may not be getting a lot of love back from your kids, yet you're being asked to give unconditionally anyway. But in essence, we can be blinded by just how much we've been programmed by society to look at relationships as transactional, certainly in romantic relationships, friendships. In this giving and receiving, if you give me something, I'll give you something back. That's not unconditional love. Love is coming to the experience of a relationship and consciously choosing how you wish to relate to that person. Because we're all connected in this family that is humanity. I'm not saying that you stay in relation to another human being who is treating you disrespectfully consistently if you have the option of stepping away. And I'm certainly not advocating for remaining in relationships where you suffer or fail to respect or love yourself. But I'm also making it clear that any interaction or encounter with another human being is a synchronistic or non-coincidental opportunity to demonstrate who you really are. Again, I will deep dive into that in future videos. So the question is, do I choose to relate to this other human by being forgiving? Because that is who I really am. Do I choose to be assertive rather than passive? Because I now choose to respect myself enough to have a voice rather than people-pleasing. And choosing to be human in these types of ways has nothing to do with what the other person is doing. It's all just a choice about who you are and who you wish to be. Again, I'm not advocating for staying in relationships where the other person is completely disconnected from their sense of love and projecting all their fear-based emotions out onto you, such as anger and judgment and criticism. Because if there's an option to be away from someone like that, you'll take that. But we're all human and we're all going to have moments where we slip into those shadow aspects, and it is possible to move to a space where you do not take that as personally and again, see it as an opportunity to be that best version of yourself. And with practice, with doing the inner work, to working with those shadow aspects, we can get to the point where someone else's behavior, where the external circumstances do not determine how you behave, how you feel, and how you are. To get to that point, it involves diving in and working with the parts of you that have been wounded in the past. And working with the parts of you that have been trying to put up a shield and protect you. But it's very possible, after doing that inner work, to not only not be affected by another person's behavior in a significant way. And now I'm not saying zero effect, because it's very challenging to not be affected in some kind of way. But to not only be less reactive, but to actually remain in a calm, composed, loving space. And to walk away from a situation like that without holding on to resentment and judgment or anxiety. Yes, it's not only possible, but I believe it is part of our journey of personal evolution as human beings to move to that space. To be immune to what's going on out there in relationships and rise to the state of being love no matter what is coming at us externally. But being love also means loving yourself. So people-pleasing, self-sacrificing, being the martyr, that is not love, because it's not loving yourself. And if we look at the importance of relationships from a survival or biological standpoint, we can see that we could not have survived without relationships, without another human being in our early life. In our early years, our survival is completely dependent on others. We can't survive alone without having those needs for food, shelter, protection looked after. And with being so reliant on others in that early phase, we needed to form beliefs, a set of rules effectively that dictate our personalities so that we could feel safe. For most of us, that's driven by our relationship with our parents. because we needed them so much to survive that we developed mechanisms, rules, beliefs in order to make sure we felt cared and accepted by them in order to survive. If you think about it from the point of view of our ancestors, if you were kicked out of the tribe, kicked out of the village at a young age, let's say before the age of 7, you effectively would not have survived. It was a matter of survival to find a way to feel connected to other human beings and to develop a set of internal rules or beliefs to feel safe and connected to our tribe. And we still have that ingrained in us now. No matter how independent we are, that biological drive, that unconscious mechanism to be connected to others is there. And that driving force for connection is always going to be there, no matter how independent we are. And we don't need to have those underlying beliefs unconsciously rule the way we live in the world. When you do the work, when you find those parts that have been wounded or become dysfunctional in the way that they shield you from the hurts of the world and integrate them with love, you're free. And I've witnessed this process directly in thousands that I've worked with. And I've seen my life transform from experiencing it directly also. Relationships are the ultimate opportunity to choose who we are, to experience who we are, and to be who we truly are. And when we peel back our protective shadow shield and strip back the layers of our programming from our family and society, we find love beneath it all, at our essence. Our core selves are love. And there are so many powerful and practical pathways available to all of us to travel that path back to love. And remember what we are: unconditional love. Under the banner of the Soul Psych, I'm bringing over 20 years experience as a clinical psychologist alongside with over 20 years of personal and spiritual growth. I seek to be the bridge between psychology and spirituality, and to offer all that I've discovered over the past 20 plus years back to humanity. So if my words have resonated with you in this video, I hope to have you viewing in future with the focus around themes of using relationships to grow personally and spiritually. I am deeply passionate and committed to helping others to be the best, to create extraordinary relationships, not only with others, but with yourself. So if you're interested in having extraordinary relationships, not only with others, but most importantly with yourself, please join me by subscribing or checking out how to work with me directly, following the link below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.